Welcome to Sub Rosa. All right, you've got a Sub Rosa, Eugene. What do you got?
Yes, we've got one. This is I'm in senior management at a small family-owned company. My boss, the CEO, has an executive coach who he treats like a guru. We're always being asked to read articles or books the coach has suggested. We've had to do multiple tests and exercises about our team styles, but it doesn't work. My boss, he isn't getting better as a boss, and the rest of us resent how much time these exercises take, and we don't think it's helping. Plus, it's expensive. What should we do?
I was talking to some friends who are also executive coaches. I am an executive coach, and we were complaining about how difficult it is to follow a bad coach,
Yeah.
right? And there are bad coaches. Right? So if you're in executive leadership at this company, then you're in a position to actually do a little research and have a conversation with whoever it is that's making these decisions, presumably your boss. The
Hmm.
first thing to do is do a little bit of research on a coach, right?
Okay.
On this particular coach. So anyone can hang up a shingle and say they are a coach.
Hmm.
Anyone, right?
Hmm.
There is no accreditation, there's nobody watching. You can just say it's not like being a doctor. I can't walk in and say I'm an MD, but you can say I'm a coach. So there's
Hmm.
a couple of things that you can look for an executive coach. You want to make sure that this is a person who is certified. Right?
Right.
A lot of people are certified through the ICF, which is the International Coaching Federation,
Hmm.
or they are affiliated with the ICF.
Hmm.
I am a board certified coach, which is through another organization, but I'm a member of the ICF. And the reason that's important is you agree to adhere to a ethical standard. There's an ethical guidelines and there's an ethical board, right? So if
How do you find out if a person is that?
you can look it up, you can go to the ICF
Okay.
and see if they are. Usually people with accreditation will say it in their LinkedIn profile or on their website. Right.
Okay.
So you can easily find out that I have a master's degree in transformational leadership and I'm
Right.
a board certified coach and I'm a member of the ICF.
Okay.
Anyone who has that is putting it out in the world. If they don't have it, they probably don't have it, which
I
doesn't
got
mean
you.
there aren't good coaches who don't have, but it's suspect. Right. The
Okay.
second thing I would do is I would say to ask the boss, what are the metrics? How are you judging what this coach is doing? Right.
Hmm.
So, it's hard to, it's sometimes hard to judge, but there's usually a baseline, right? An
Hmm.
executive, sometimes I'll do a 360 assessment of an
Hmm.
executive when we start working together and then maybe come back 6 months later. A lot
Hmm.
of workplaces have surveys. So what are the metrics? How are you judging this? And then I
Right.
think when it comes to the team coaching, trying to understand what is the problem the leader is trying to solve.
Hmm.
Right? So I've done a lot of team coaching and it usually is useful to say, here are the challenges that this team is having.
Hmm.
Here's what success looks like. It
Right.
doesn't sound like the person that wrote in has an understanding of what is the problem that's trying to be fixed.
Mhm.
Usually, teams that are getting,
So you mean they don't have an understanding of why the person has a guru to begin with?
yes,
I got you.
or why they're, because there's two different things. Having leadership coaching, a lot of
Mm,
times the people that work for that person, they don't know what the executive's working on and it's none of their business, right? That's a confidential relationship. But
right.
if a team is being coached, if a team is being told you need to spend time reading these books or doing these exercises or going through these assessments, they should know why.
Right.
Every team I've ever worked with understands why a coach is being hired to work with them. It's
Right.
not a secret, right?
Right.
If you don't understand why your team has to be subjected to all of this, then it's a reasonable question. I
Right.
think it's also a reasonable question if you are a senior executive that has anything to do with finances to
Mhm.
get curious about, what is the cost? Executive coaching is expensive,
Mm,
particularly for people who have the credentials. But there are a lot of add ons that sometimes I get a little askance about. Right.
mhm.
So you can get all sorts of assessments that come from various companies, and they can be from $20,000 to $60,000,
Mhm.
right? To access basically a questionnaire with a kind of readout. Some
Right.
people find that really helpful. I don't know that it's always cost effective. So I
Okay.
think getting educated about what are you buying, what is the return on investment, because I think that the bottom line is coaching should be effective. The
Hmm.
understanding of who's doing it and why and what success looks like should be clear. And if
Hmm.
not, you get to ask the questions.
Right. Right. Yeah. I get the sense that your very logical answer might fly in the face of the use of the word guru kind of made me think that what's being said is that they don't think like they fundamentally think the person's peddling snake oil, and the boss is held in thrall to somebody who's not a legitimate actor. So even if you come and say, "Look, this person is not credentialed," then you still have a problem. It doesn't matter that the person's not credentialed to this boss. If that mattered to the boss, due diligence would have indicated that the boss would have taken care of it. So how do I handle somebody who's in the grips of a bad actor who happens to be in control of my financial life? So
I guess then, I mean, you're right. I did notice that, and I was going for the intellectual, not the other. I mean,
mm,
one of the challenges is that, if you are in a guru situation, you just have to kind of wait until that
yeah,
attraction wanes, which it will, right?
yeah,
There are a lot of coaches who peddle a sort of weird blend of like what we used to call new age spirituality
yeah,
with sort of pretend data, here are some terms of art, or
yeah.
a particular model, right? So if there is like good coaching is hard to pitch,
Right,
right? To say,
right,
I am going to work with your team with my skills and experience to help them be better is very
yeah.
different than I'm going to tell you the six something somethings or the this, that, or the next thing. But I think what I get very nervous about is there are coaches who talk about kind of pseudo spiritual things like, I am also a Reiki master. I am an authority on numerology. I am really invested in horoscopes, some even spiritual practices,
Mhm.
all of which can be very valuable. And there are people who I'm sure are professionals in that realm,
Right.
right? But there's a real difference between someone who is a Reiki master, who has done the work, who has put in the hours, who has the experience, who has an ongoing practice, and
Mhm.
someone who took a like weekend class on Reiki and is now saying that they're a coach and they do Reiki, right? And
Yep.
again, nothing against Reiki, but it's
Mhm.
like when you see those things that aren't about academics, that aren't research based, that don't come from somebody who's a certified coach, the more out they are, the more it is kind of
Mhm.
like I'm gonna grab onto this particular trend and I'm gonna put that into my marketing. And that's where I think the guru thing comes in. People are very susceptible to that,
Mhm.
right? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think if your coach, if your boss thinks that their coach is a guru, then they may have some sway over them that
Mhm.
might not be healthy. And I don't know that there's much that you can do. If you have a close enough relationship with your boss, you could bring that up.
Mhm.
I'm a little bit uncomfortable with this. I think it's a little bit, but you
Mhm.
may have to just wait.
As a sideline, I had a boss once ask me to go to church with him. I declined. Um,
Yeah, that's another, I mean, when you have those, because that can also happen with bosses who get really into Reiki or numerology or astrology or a religious tradition, or even like that. I think is also, you don't, that's another thing you don't want to talk about work. The only exception is
mhm.
I do think it is okay to talk about meditation
Mhm.
or like physical movement like yoga or tai chi. That I think is appropriate because it has a relaxation,
Right.
mindfulness
Right.
um, component to it that isn't necessarily spiritual and is also backed by a lot of data and research. Mindfulness helps people at work, it helps with stress, it helps with all the things. So I think that's the only exception. If your boss had invited you to a mindfulness meditation that was completely not spiritual, based in a spiritual tradition, I think that would have been different. But the going to church, yeah, no,
Yeah. Yeah.
not a
Yep.
thing. All right,
Okay.
if you have a question for us that you would like us to cover in Sub Rosa, WTF at badbossbrief.com, and we can answer your question right here in this space. See you soon. Bye.
Bye bye.